Howdy folks, Chuck Schiele here again with another artist feature here at Making Music Magazine. Today we got a double feature. We have Hansen and Skanson. This is Gregg Hansen and Darren Skanson, two fine guitar players. We've got one who comes from a classical world and one who comes from sort of a picking Chet Atkins world. You guys, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Real good, real good.
Good. So tell us a little bit about your project. I mean, you both come from very separate worlds. Well, not very separate, but you know, you collide and you find your own nucleus as an artistic endeavor. And here you go. I've seen your stuff online. It's beautiful. Tell us about this project, please.
Well, sure. Just to make sure that we get this out of the way right away, Chuck. Me being the prettiest of the two of us.
Clearly. Paul and I were talking about that before we started the show.
That we reverse that name. It's Skanson and Hansen. So the prettiest one always goes first, right?
I see. I see.
And the one that doesn't have to prove it always goes second.
This is why I got into guitar playing.
Yeah.
So we could talk a bunch of stuff like this.
It's good to be in the band, isn't it?
How do you come to select your material?
We always, of course, our thing is arrangement. We arrange nostalgia, you know, songs that have already got the marketing done.
Yeah.
But we choose songs where, even though we don't sing, we make sure that the lyrics are of a positive nature, and because everybody out there that's listening to us will know the words. We want to make sure that a good lyric's going through their head while we're playing a familiar melody and such. Mm-hmm. So that's our bottom line. That's how we begin choosing. And of course, we'll have a theme for a certain CD that we're putting out, so we'll adhere to that theme as well.
Mm-hmm. I just had it told to me that you know, the person who was commenting said how amazed she was at how clearly she can hear the melodies in what we're doing, and that, you know, even though there isn't singing going on, she really identified with the music so much because the melody for us is so strong.
Yeah, good. Well, it's the power of the melody, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So Gregg, you mentioned earlier that you have sort of a Chet Atkins-ness approach.
Yeah, the Travis picking style, that little boom.
Picking style. For the benefit of our readers, could you show us something that would demonstrate emblematically this approach to guitar?
Sure.
The idea here being that, like, I want our readers to see what you do. And then I want people to see what Darren does and how they're different so that they can alchemically, when you put those together, how you arrive at this new sound in this beautiful place that's unique unto yourselves. Let's show the kids how we do that, okay?
And that is the key to the uniqueness, you're right. So how about a little bit, since we're on kind of a Beatle kick today.
All right.
I got my Abbey Road shirt on, and Darren's got his Cavern Club shirt on.
I got my Burnaby Street 60.
Yeah. Right on. So we're all in the UK here. So anyway, so a little bit of Here Comes the Sun. See my thumbs going back and forth? That's the Travis pick.
Beautiful.
The thumb just goes back and forth and keeps time. That's your basic Travis picking style.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Write everything on top of it.
So Darren, why don't you show us something that would represent the path that you have taken in the classical world?
Sure. I think the biggest thing is the stroke on a nylon string is different than the stroke on a steel string. Whereas a steel string has a lot of resonance, and the string will resonate once you pluck it. On a classical guitar with the nylon strings, it's just not the same. So therefore, I think the biggest thing is that I use nails on my nylon string guitar. The nails on a nylon give you that attack that you do not get if you're playing it with flesh. So we always say nails on nylon, steel,
Flesh on steel.
flesh on steel.
Yeah.
So that is probably the biggest thing. And then the other piece of it, of course, is that if you notice when Gregg was playing, he's playing mostly with 3 fingers, which is sort of the claw coming from banjo style a lot. Whereas I tend to play with 4 fingers, the third finger being my melody finger often. So. You hear the attack on the nylon with that's how you get those to ring.
We played both of these songs at least 1 million times apiece.
Yes.
In our illustrious careers.
It's beautiful. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And beautiful sounding instrument too. Okay, so now let's put that together and see what we get out of that. Like put, you know, I mean, you played 2 different pieces, but show us how you put these, how you put it together.
Well, let us give a minute to introduce double finger style for a minute.
Okay.
Yourself, you were saying that you're a fingerstyle guitarist as well. As a fingerstyle guitarist, you're covering the bass, chords, and melody all at the same time, correct?
Correct.
So both of us, when we came together, having had careers as fingerstyle guitarists, me as classical and Spanish guitarist, and Gregg as a folk fingerstylist, we're used to covering all of these elements ourselves. But when we started putting together, it was like, wow, that's cool. Sometimes we're playing melody, bass, and chords all together or in harmony at sometimes. Sometimes you're leaving certain parts of that out, letting the other guy play it. So herein comes, it's almost a reductionist approach of who's playing what and who's complementing what, who has the melody, who's holding down the bass. Are you both doing that? So that is what we call double finger style. So as we're playing together, we're constantly flipping back and forth between playing a single line melody, accompanying chords, playing in harmony with each other. And I think the best way to demonstrate that is to play our arrangement of the Beatles and John Lennon, All You Need Is Love, going into Imagine, coming back out of Imagine into All You Need Is Love.
Oh man, I can't wait. That's exactly what I'm hoping for here. So yeah, let her rip.
We'll play that right now?
Yeah, if you want me to introduce you like Ed Sullivan, I could.
Yeah.
Hey, just remember, the beautiful one first.
Yeah.
Skanson.
Okay. All right, Skanson, you lead the way there, cutie.
Right on.
There we go.
Hit it, man.
another successful landing.
Made it, right? Yeah, that was beautiful. I really enjoyed that. Thank you
Oh,
very
thanks,
much.
Chuck.
So, obviously, you guys have a background in, learning in school and things like that. How did you respectively get started in, your paths educationally?
And well, see, well, first of all, the thing that got me going was back to the Ed Sullivan Show, was seeing the Beatles for the very first time back in 1964.
Mhm.
And that I went like, I think I want to do that. I was already playing music, trumpet. I played trumpet in the junior high band at the time and just taking piano lessons. But they got me on the fascination of a guitar and playing a guitar. And so I had a buddy who had an older brother who was in a band, and my buddy and I both were playing guitar. We were, curious about it. So he would learn licks from his older brother and then come teach me. So it went on like, then I took it from there and started, learning on my own. And I played in bands for several years, all through high school. I've been playing in bands since I was in ninth grade in high school. And, but then, after a while, I got to where, my technique is really not correct. And when I was getting in my early 20s and I went to college, to North Texas State University, because I didn't have a chance to study theory where I went to small schools and they didn't have a music program that provided that. So I was really interested in learning about theory and how music worked. And so I went to North Texas State University, which I'm
Good
sure
place to go for that.
you're in
Most
the
certainly.
jazz world, you definitely know North Texas State. And
Yeah.
I did not know anything about it when I first went there. I just went there because I could afford it, number one. It was actually cheaper to go there out of state than where I lived at the time. And it emphasized music. It had a big emphasis on music. So I went down there, but I had to go as a trumpet player because they didn't offer jazz guitar at the time, 1971. So I went, but I studied theory and got a good background in theory and did all that, did all my basics. Then I came back in 1977 and they had a jazz program by then, jazz guitar program with a man named Jack Peterson, who taught out of Berklee School of Music for many years. In fact, he taught Jack DeJohnette way back in the 60s. He was his teacher. So anyway, he set up a program and I learned the value of practicing like every day. And and for all you students or you musicians out there, young musicians, that is the way. That is the only way you're going to get your dexterity and your flexibility on your instrument to be able to create and play music. Is you've got to have your muscles, you got to have your skills together, and that's muscle memory. That's not brain surgery. Doesn't matter how smart anybody is. That's just push-ups, right? Doing it consistently, but doing it mindfully, which of course I didn't do at first. So I had to go back and relearn everything a couple times, but I finally got there in the end. And although we're always learning something, I mean, there's always something, and I go back and relearn these tunes that we do, because we mainly play seasonally. And I'm always going like, well, I think I found a better fingering for that part I've been playing for 10 years, and so on like that. So anyway, when I learned the value of practicing and the value of a metronome, then I started really moving forward in my guitar playing. And I played electric guitar. I played reggae music I played like 60s music, Grateful Dead and Beatles and such all through the 70s in bands. And I played reggae music in my own band. I discovered Bob Marley and just fell in love with that style. And I kind of played an American Jimi Hendrix, Jerry Garcia meets Bob Marley original kind of reggae. Plus I did a reggae versions of Nostalgia, which, I've always
Fun.
loved.
Yeah.
And then I eventually got into, that ended and I got off into acoustic music where I started playing Celtic music. And that's where I started getting into the finger style, was when I was introduced to Celtic music. And I played that for about 15 years. And then that kind of ended. I kind of ran out of gas on that. And then I met Darren actually about 20 years ago. I was still just 4 or 5 years into the Celtic scene, but then he produced me actually. He's actually not only a really fine guitar player and musician, but engineer and producer. And so he produced my first 3 solo guitar albums.
Cool.
And that's when we started arranging together because we were co-producing my tunes. And then ever since then, 20 years ago, and then I started doing solo fingerstyle gigs all over the place. And we'll get into that later too. But somewhere around, about 8 years after that, after we met each other, we were both kind of at the end of each other's projects, and we started, well, we did, actually, I did Blackbird on my third solo album, but I only played the guitar part. Right? So I needed somebody to play the melody, and I said, Darren, let's do a duet on my third CD. And I said, here's my track, work up a melody to it. And he worked up this awesome melody. I mean, it's the melody of Blackbird, but a very nice arrangement of it.
Sure.
And we went and did another one, and then we said, okay, that's it. And we've made 6 CDs since then.
Wow.
And even went to London and recorded at Abbey Road. But anyway, that's my long-winded side of history there. But
thank you for that.
Education was the key. Because we're both educated, we can speak the same language. And we don't have to explain anything to each other that's musical. We just say, this is what I'm going to do. Oh, okay, I can do this then. We already know all that theory and all that back.
Things are understood, yes. Yeah.
How
about you, Darren?
I'm done.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'll go back right to the beginning too, I guess. And, guitar is all about getting chicks.
Or chicks getting guys.
Yeah, I've heard. I'm still playing in the pursuit of that. I hope it works out someday.
Being honest, that's where it started. My buddy's having a band, and I'm in 7th grade, and they're playing up on the stage, and of course all the girls are screaming, and I went, I like that. That's groovy. That's groovy. But then after high school and playing in bands and things like that, I went on to college and really discovered the whole world of music, which was never a part of my background before. So taking theory and music history and things like that, I really discovered the whole world of music. And while there, I was studying guitar, both electric and nylon string classical guitar, and as well as composition and audio engineering. So the 3 of those things really have been the cornerstones of my life ever since. Kind of speaking of to piggyback on what Gregg said about, the practice time, that was the period in my life where, I really got whipped into shape from my teachers about, you have to spend the time practicing. And it is time, as Gregg was saying, it's time that you need to spend. And that's that little bit of time every day. Mm-hmm. You can't cram for this kind of stuff.
Well, there's a term out there called the 10,000 hours that you put in.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that? Like you can definitely, it is a thing.
Yep.
It is a thing. And there's a lot to be said for it. And both of you are alluding to it, like while you're taking lessons, you also take a lot of practical time to just play. And Gregg mentioned he got involved with this, got involved with that. It sounded like you were just playing aside from, showing up to school and all that. Because you do, as you are examples with one another in this scenario, you've obviously learned from each other probably a lot about arrangement and being sensitive to where each other want to be in the mix and, the opportunities therein.
Well, I think that comes from, I'll piggyback on what Gregg was saying and what you're saying as well, of after the practice time was really ingrained, it was really when I went on the road playing 6 nights a week for, number of years, that all of a sudden my playing went from the practice room level. And this is where I piggyback on Gregg, because I believe that you can get so good in the practice room, but you'll never get to that point where you're emoting with your instrument until you go play in front of people. Yeah. So I know a lot of great practice room guitar players who they're just stiff on stage. They're stiff in front of people, and therefore they can't emote. So that thing is the thing that I find a lot. So being an audio producer as well, I find that a lot with people who come to the studio. They'd be like, well, I sound great in my bedroom. Yes, but there's a different thing to kick it up to that next level where you really make people feel the music.
Well, yeah, I completely not agree, but I get what you're saying as a producer as well. but more from that player part where, you know, I look at practice and rehearsal as preparation, but you really get killer when you hit that stage and the pressure's on and everybody, and it's survive or die. You know, you're on the plank when the people show up, pay, and they get their cocktail and start looking at, see what you got. That's a whole different story than having yourself as your audience in your own room, you know. And there's a lot to be said for that. You know, practicing is the most powerful way to become prepared for when you show up to the gig, which is, you know.
Yeah, talk about totally being in the present when you're, in fact, I've heard this, an example of being in the present is like when a musician is performing from memory. When you're performing a piece for other people from memory, you are completely and totally in the moment. You have to.
I love you, man. That is great. Like, you can't be in my band if you're pulling if you bring the stand up with you. If you're not committed to memory, you're not ready because of exactly this. Like, is it under your hands yet? Or are you still trying to hang on to the tune? Oh, here comes the C. You know, that's for practice and rehearsal. But yeah, when you get out there to the stage, it's time to talk, and you need to have this language under your hands, so to speak. Yeah, I'm glad I asked this question. So with that said, let's do our 2-minute tip right here, because I think you guys are expert for this kind of thing. You know, please offer a simple tip to our readers that help them save time. You know, not your biggest, deepest, darkest musical secret, but just something that's a good common sense practical habit to develop or something. Ready, set, go.
I think the biggest thing that I've always
Showbiz.
that I find is having a basic knowledge of theory allows you to access music so much more quickly. There's a great example of there was a piano teacher who was not teaching piano with the kids looking at the notes. She was teaching them chord structure first, so that they could really understand how music was constructed. Then she would get to the notes later. And I was like, that's amazing, because that's how I learned first. And she said to me an amazing thing. She said, you have to realize that when Mozart was taught how to play, they were taught that first. They were not taught the notes in front of them first. They were taught music and how it's structured. So I give lots of interviews to aspiring audio engineers and producers. Just had 2 of them yesterday. My first question on the music side of things is like, okay, what's a 1-4-5 in the key of C? And it's like, all right, what's the 6th chord? All right, oh, we want to switch it to B flat, right? What's the 2 chord in B flat? And almost across the board, they're like deer in the headlights, like, let me think about it. I was like, okay, you're done.
You have to think about it.
Client just walked out the door. So that basic level knowledge of music can access you more enjoyment than, you know, working on your alternate picking.
And I wish I was down the street from you guys. I would love to take a spin with you. I mean, that's exactly how I learned. What you just said is exactly what my dad did with me. He was a jazz bass player. He played with Al Jarreau and guys like that.
Oh, man.
And one day when I moved to California, he had his guitar in the corner. I said, will you show me that? And he sat down and showed me what solfege does. And just like you said, as long as you understand this, you can start anywhere on here, you know, B flat or G, and apply this same little theory, and you can find your way into any song, anything that was ever written. And until this moment, I didn't realize, I knew it was valuable, but not how valuable until you just said that. Because of that, I am not a proficient theorist, like, you know, guys like Itzhak or somebody like that, you know, where I just geek out on the theory all day. I'm a rock and roller. I show up and throw it down, you know. By now, after many years, I know what I'm doing, but it's because of that. That's a very good thing to share. I'm very happy you said that.
The core thing about that, Chuck, is that it allows you to access the fun and the emotion of music more quickly.
I think it simultaneously, personally speaking, it takes off the pressure, because by now, with that equipment of understanding that, I can just listen and know that we're in the key of G now, and I can hear the way they're approaching it, and I know we're going to, if it's, if it's going to be a blues, we all kind of know the automatic code of that, but it enables things like, how do you say it, sort of hearing around the corner. They set up a couple of changes, A minor to C to G. We're either going to F or D next, right? Something like that, right?
Yeah,
You start to hear that by the way it's indicating. And it's because of that thing. So folks, rewind and listen to this part again, because it's a great way to have fun, just like Darren's saying.
Yeah.
I did this just yesterday in that interview, where I had the gentleman play me one of his songs. And as soon as he finished, he was 3/4 away through his song. I said, okay, that's good. I grabbed the guitar and I said, it goes like this, right? And he was like, how did you know that? I just mapped what you were doing theory wise.
Kind of wants to go here. Yeah.
He wants to go there, and I played it back for him like that.
Yeah.
So
Right.
Then you can start getting into substitutions and like, well, normally go there, but it'd be cooler to go here.
exactly.
And you can really start developing after you get those basic progressions going.
Right. Hey, that's great. Okay. Let's see. Okay. So, as you guys are playing professionally all this time, last bunch of years, 6 years, you say, how has guitars are such an analog thing, and playing music is such an analog experience, and now we're in this digital world that is crazy, especially under the influence of COVID, and it's redirecting how the music business works. We got MP3s and all this stuff. How does that affect you, and how do you see the forecast of the way our industry is under an ongoing renaissance for quite a while here?
Well,
How's that for a question, right?
Yeah.
Should probably give you a couple lifesavers and chiclets to think about your
Yes.
answer.
Yes.
We agree with everything.
Yeah.
Well, I was on the road for many, many years too, and I played original music in a band that
Cool.
I was the composer as well, and an arranger. And so, back in the 80s and then through the 90s, if you played original music, you played for the door, right? The clubs weren't going to pay you to come in and play your music unless you could show them you could bring 500 people in their club. So I was used to a gig being that way. You got paid something at the end, hopefully. And then Darren played in a band. You played it was a cover band, but you guys played for bucks, and we got paid. Well, when I first met Darren, he was playing in shopping malls and busking on street corners, selling CDs and cassettes, and doing really well. And playing all day and this and that. And so he got me into that, but playing in shopping malls. And so I got to where now gigs didn't pay a certain amount. They paid how many CDs you sold. So now you're playing for your supper. I think that's what you were talking about earlier. It's kind of like when you have to play for your supper, it changes everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so we saw CDs. We sold CDs for 10 years, or maybe 8 or 9 years, really, really well. And then, of course, 3-4 years ago, it started declining, right? Everybody's got a subscription to Spotify or something. Pandora. So now music is being sold on a monthly fee instead of by the item. And and young people just make CDs and give them away. CDs are like business cards now. And we're going like, hey, wait, don't give that away. So anyway, we've seen the whole CD business pretty much crash anyway, and now it's gone. It's like gone. It doesn't exist anymore at all. And you want to take it from here?
Sure. And so it's industry wide, right? We went from selling CDs to making sure your stuff was up on iTunes to now
flash drives.
Right? Maybe flash drives for a flash in the pan.
Just a minute, I know.
Right. But now everybody that I talk to, they're like, Oh yeah, well that sounds like something I heard on Spotify. Oh yeah, that's something I heard on YouTube. It's like, well, how on earth are we supposed to benefit from our work? How?
It's a great
Well,
question.
You can't sell tickets right now.
Can't
It's hard
sell-
to sell tickets.
Well, talk about COVID, right? You can't even sell tickets now.
That was
so
our-
that was the last model
Yeah.
where give away the music and get them to come to the show, right? So
Yeah.
now the whole industry is like, okay, now what the heck do we do,
Yeah.
right? And music has become, you know, it's one of my pet peeves of going into every restaurant, every store, you get into somebody's house, get into their car, you get into and it's like music all the time, everywhere. I'm a lover of music, and it's like, it's become now just like the air you breathe. Music is everywhere, right? So how on earth do we benefit from that? Well, so Gregg and I have embraced this subscription model where we have our Patreon, and we're hoping folks sign up on our Patreon, which is simply Skanson Hansen, and that's Hansen with an E, Skanson with an O, Skanson Hansen at Patreon. So patreon.com/Skanson Hansen. And we're asking for, you know, a minimum donation of $5 a month, so we can continue to go through our archives. We can play for you live. That is the model going forward. And if there's any other musicians watching this, I've made my living in music my whole life. Gregg has as well. And we are both like, this is the only avenue we have anymore to continue benefiting, continue to do music like we just did for you. We have to benefit too. We have to live.
Sure.
Y'all get it for free everywhere. But you know what? Pretty soon, it's not going to be available anymore if you don't support artists.
I know it's an interesting situation. I mean, on one hand, it's wonderful that music is everywhere, right? How beautiful life is.
Beautiful.
On the other hand, we've managed to somehow teach everybody that you should just get this for free. And that's so sad, because I think without music, it's the best medicine there ever was on the planet.
Absolutely.
And we would all lose it. And in an age, an era where everybody's kind of losing it anyway, you know, I mean, I'm really happy that we have the salve and the medicine of music. But yeah, we're in a funny little place with how we stay healthy as practitioners and makers of music and take care of our own. So, well, I appreciate your thoughts on it, and I appreciate you gentlemen showing up today. It's been a complete pleasure to meet you and hear your music and discuss your ideas. So, you know, besides your Patreon site, is there anywhere else that our folks can find you?
We have a YouTube channel as well.
Yep.
YouTube channel, Skanson and Hansen.
Skanson Hansen on YouTube.
Yeah, just Skanson Hansen, not Hansen.
Skanson and Hansen, okay.
The Patreon is, like I said, patreon.com/Skanson Hansen.
Very good. Okay, folks. Well, if you had a good time, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you go check these guys out and check out their catalog of music. It's terrific. Sign up for our email, weekly email. Sign up for our, subscribe to our YouTube. Hit all our social media channels. We're everywhere all the time. And make sure you keep practicing, and you come see us anytime. Oh, you're going to show us one more thing?
One more thing.
Little plug?
We recorded in Abbey Road a whole our arrangements of Beatles CDs, and played at the Cavern Club up in Liverpool, and we videotaped all of it. And our Patreon channel, we're releasing all these rare videos.
Oh, wow. How cool is that? That's good to know. I might talk to you about this after. I have another friend who just recorded his album at Abbey Road.
Oh, yeah?
I'm working on an article about that as well. So,
Yeah.
you worked at Abbey Road?
We spent 4 days, 10 hours a day recording there. In the original, in fact, we were the last people to be in the original studio too. They remodeled it after we were done.
Who was your engineer?
We brought our own.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool. All right. Well, thanks very much, guys. And folks, we'll see you pretty soon, okay? So we're, like I said, we're here all the time. We've got More interviews coming up in another day or two, and another day or two after that, and another day or two after that, until you all fall down. So have a great day. Keep practicing. Play music. Stay cool.